The easiest way to choose a fantasy book with a great magic system is not to ask which system is best. It is to ask what you want the magic to do while you read. Some readers want clear rules. They like knowing the cost, the limits, and the clever use of those limits. Other readers want mystery. They like magic that feels older than the characters and larger than any chart. This guide uses 6 reliable entry points because each one teaches a different version of magical design. Mistborn, the Final Empire, is the clean, hard magic starter. The Way of Kings is the large-scale system with rules, mystery, and cultural weight. Fullmetal Alchemist, Volume 1 is the visual and elegant rule set. The Name of the Wind is the academic and musical approach. A Wizard of Earthsea is the classic soft magic model built on balance and names. The Black Prism is the tactical color-based system. I am using first or early entry books here because beginners need the right doorway, not a shelf of sequels. If one system fits your taste, the rest of that series becomes easier to judge. The point is not to crown one universal winner. It is to make the viewer feel confident about the next purchase, the next library hold, or the next audiobook sample. Mistborn, The Final Empire, Brandon Sanderson. This is fast-moving epic fantasy built around rule-based powers, clear costs, and a street-level view of a controlled empire. If you have ever wanted magic to feel almost like a physical system, this is the safest first pick on the list. The core appeal is simple. The reader understands enough of the rules to follow strategy, but not so much that the book becomes a manual. That balance matters. A hard magic system works best when the limits make scenes clearer, not colder. Mistborn does that very well because the powers are easy to visualize and easy to compare. Another reason this is such a strong entry is that it teaches the reader how to read Sanderson. He often builds tension from rules, costs, and problem solving. You do not need to study anything before starting. You learn the system through repeated use and practical consequences. For a beginner, this makes the book feel fair. You can sense why a choice works, why a limit matters, and why a clever solution feels earned. That is the main reason Mistborn is so often recommended as a first serious magic system fantasy. It is also the first Mistborn novel, so the recommendation gives you a clean series doorway rather than a random middle volume. The Way of Kings, Brandon Sanderson. This is large-scale epic fantasy with layered cultures, patient world-building, and magic that starts mysterious before becoming more structured. Choose this if you want the feeling of a huge world where magic is not just a tool. It affects history, warfare, religion, scholarship, and everyday assumptions. The important distinction is that The Way of Kings is not the easiest start by length. It asks for more patience than Mistborn. The reward is a system that feels embedded in the world instead of attached to it. This is also useful for readers who want both hard and soft magic at once. Some pieces feel measurable and repeatable. Other pieces feel ancient, partial, and not fully explained at the beginning. That mix creates a special reading experience. You are not only asking what the rules are, you are also asking why the world forgot some of them, why different groups interpret them differently, and why knowledge itself becomes power. Start here only if you like commitment. If you prefer a clean demonstration before a giant series, start with Mistborn first. It is the opening volume of the Stormlight Archive, so the size is part of the promise and part of the warning. Fullmetal Alchemist, Vol. 1. Hiromu Arakawa. This is adventure fantasy in manga form, built around visual problem-solving, emotional stakes, and the famous idea of equivalent exchange. This entry belongs here because manga can teach a magic system with unusual speed. A single panel can show the setup, the action, the cost, and the result more efficiently than a page of explanation. That makes Fullmetal Alchemist very friendly for readers who like systems but dislike heavy exposition. The rules are simple enough to remember. The consequences are serious enough to matter. The phrase equivalent exchange is the key idea. It gives the reader a moral and mechanical frame at the same time. Magic is not free. Transformation has limits. Knowledge has weight. That clarity makes the system feel satisfying without draining it of emotion. This is also a good recommendation for someone who wants fantasy mechanics but not a giant prose commitment right away. Volume 1 gives you a fast sample of the system, the tone, and the visual language. If it works for you, continuing is easy. Vol 1 is the starting point for Fullmetal Alchemist, so you are sampling the system from its intended first step. The Name of the Wind, Patrick Rothfuss. This is lyrical fantasy about learning, reputation, music, and the slow attraction of knowledge in a carefully framed life story. The magic system appeal here is different from Mistborn. It is less about a clean toolkit and more about the romance of study. The book makes knowledge feel desirable. It cares about names, craft, language, performance, and the gap between knowing a rule and truly understanding it. That gives the reading experience a special texture. You feel the pull of a school, a library, and a half-understood tradition without needing the book to explain every mystery at once. This is a strong choice if you want magic to feel learned rather than simply activated. It is also good for readers who like elegant prose and a slower burn. The caveat is simple. This is not the best pick if your main priority is a completed series or fast mechanical payoff. Rate it for atmosphere, voice, and the feeling of intelligence being sharpened. Read Mistborn if you want rules to click faster. One useful way to think about this book is that its magic is persuasive because the surrounding education feels persuasive. The system gains power from classrooms, practice, failure, and reputation. It is the opening book of the Kingkiller Chronicle, so the recommendation is about the first doorway, not a completed reading order. A Wizard of Earthsea, Ursula K. Le Guin. This is classic fantasy with a spare style, a mythic tone, and magic rooted in names, balance, responsibility, and restraint. If hard magic gives you the pleasure of rules, Earthsea gives you the pleasure of meaning. The system is not soft because it is vague. It is soft because the deepest parts of it are tied to language, wisdom, and the moral weight of using power. That makes it a very different experience from modern systems built around combat tactics or visible categories. A useful fact for new readers is that Earthsea is much shorter and more economical than many later fantasy series. It does not try to overwhelm you with terminology. It often explains less and trusts the atmosphere to do more. This can feel refreshing if you are tired of heavy world building. It can also feel quiet if you expect constant demonstrations. Start here when you want fantasy magic to feel ancient, poetic, and serious. It is one of the best reminders that a magic system can be memorable without turning into a rulebook. Its influence also makes it valuable for beginners. Many later fantasy books respond to the same question. What should power cost when power changes the person using it? It also begins the Earthsea cycle, so you can treat it as a complete first experience and still continue later. The Black Prism, Brent Weeks. This is energetic, epic fantasy with color-based magic, political pressure, and a system that rewards readers who enjoy categories and trade-offs. The basic appeal is immediate. Different colors behave differently, and that gives the reader a clean mental map. Instead of magic being one general force, it becomes a set of tools with different textures, limits, and tactical uses. That is why this book works well for readers who like systems that can be compared. You can ask which color fits which situation, you can feel the pleasure of classification. The system also has a cost structure, which matters for long-term interest. Great magic systems do not only ask what a power can do, they ask what using it changes. The Black Prism is built around that kind of pressure, so the magic feels powerful without feeling free. This is not as universally gentle as Earthsea, and it is not as clean an entry as Mistborn. It is better for readers who want momentum, spectacle, and a system with strong visual identity. If color, strategy, and consequence sound appealing, this is the one to sample. It opens the Lightbringer series, so the first book functions as both a test of the system and a gateway to the larger arc. Mistborn, The Final Empire, Fullmetal Alchemist Vol 1, and The Black Prism. These are the three best choices here, if you want magic to behave like a system you can track. Start with Mistborn if you want the cleanest prose fantasy example. It is the best default recommendation, because the rules are memorable, the action is easy to picture, and the learning curve feels fair. Start with Fullmetal Alchemist if you want visual clarity and a fast sample. Its rule of exchange is simple enough to explain in one sentence, but strong enough to support a long emotional journey. Start with the Black Prism if you want the most colorful and tactical system of the three. It is more complex in texture, but the categories make it fun to compare. The reason hard magic attracts so many readers is not that it removes wonder. It changes the source of wonder. Instead of asking what might happen, you ask how a limited set of tools can be used in a surprising but fair way. That is also why hard magic can be beginner-friendly. Clear rules reduce confusion. Good limits create trust. A Wizard of Earthsea, The Name of the Wind, and The Way of Kings. These are the better choices if you want magic to feel bigger than the visible rules. Earthsea is the purest soft magic recommendation, because its power is tied to names, balance, and wisdom. It feels old in the best way. The Name of the Wind is the best pick if you want the romance of study, performance, and the slow acquisition of skill. The Way of Kings is the largest option because it combines partial rules with a world that keeps expanding around them. Soft magic is sometimes misunderstood. It does not mean the author is making things up whenever needed. At its best, soft magic creates humility. It reminds the reader that the world is larger than the viewpoint available on the page. That can make a fantasy book feel mythic, strange, or sacred without needing constant diagrams. Choose this lane if you enjoy atmosphere more than optimization. Choose it if you want magic to shape tone and meaning, not only tactics. These books are also useful if you want fantasy to leave some room for awe. They do not remove logic. They simply place logic inside history, language, culture, and mood. Commitment matters because a great magic system does not help if the book is the wrong size for your current reading life. The lowest pressure entry is Fullmetal Alchemist, Vol 1 because it is visual, quick to sample, and easy to continue if the style works for you. A Wizard of Earthsea is also low pressure because it is compact, focused, and written with unusual economy. Mistborn, The Final Empire is the best middle path. It feels substantial, but it gives you a clear system and a clear reason to keep reading. The Black Prism is a better pick once you know you like color-coded mechanics and high momentum. The Name of the Wind is best when you want prose, atmosphere, and the feeling of study. The Way of Kings is the biggest commitment, so treat it as a long-term choice rather than a casual test. This is why the full set is not the goal of this video. For Amazon and Audible, the best evergreen recommendation is usually the first reliable entry. Once the first book fits, the sequels become an easier decision. A smart reader can use that commitment ladder before spending money. Sample the smallest fit first, then move upward only when your attention is ready for a larger world. Use this simple reader map. If you like clever solutions, start with Mistborn, The Final Empire. If you like giant worlds and patient discovery, choose The Way of Kings. If you like rules that can be seen immediately, choose Fullmetal Alchemist, Vol 1. If you like beautiful language and the feeling of apprenticeship, choose The Name of the Wind. If you like myth, restraint, and old-school fantasy, choose A Wizard of Earthsea. If you like tactical categories and bright visual identity, choose the Black Prism. This map is more useful than a ranking because magic systems serve different reading moods. A system can be brilliant and still be wrong for a specific reader on a specific week. Some people want the comfort of clear limits. Some want the unease of not knowing everything. Some want the pleasure of studying the system. Some want the system to stay in the background while the world feels deep. The best choice is the one that gives you curiosity without homework. That is the point of a good recommendation. It should reduce pressure, not create another assignment. My final recommendation is simple. Start with Mistborn, The Final Empire. If you want the clearest answer to the phrase best magic system, it is readable, structured, and satisfying for first-time hard magic readers. Start with A Wizard of Earthsea if you want the opposite lesson. It shows how magic can feel powerful because it is restrained, not because every rule is explained. Start with Fullmetal Alchemist, Vol. The Black Prism gives you color and tactics. The Way of Kings gives you scale and long-term discovery. If you remember nothing else, remember this: hard magic is best when you want rules you can trust. Soft magic is best when you want wonder you cannot fully measure. Both can be excellent. The right starting book depends on which kind of wonder keeps you turning pages. For the full list and the safest order to try them, use the full guide on the channel. That makes the list reusable. You can return to it later when your taste changes, your schedule changes, or you want a different balance of clarity and mystery.